And we want to go through the scriptures that the Son of God himself, Yeshua Messiah, Jesus, he observed and kept the Sabbath day. Luke 4 verse 16. Let's read. So he came to Nazareth, that is Jesus Christ. So he came to Nazareth, where he had been brought up, and as his custom was, he went into the synagogue on the Sabbath day. Underline. Christ went into the synagogue, the temple, the church, the house of fellowship, the chapel, on the Sabbath day, and stood up to read. Praise the Lord. And he was handed the book of the prophet Isaiah, and when he had opened the book, he found the place where it was written. That is exactly what we need to let you know, that the Son of God went to fellowship or church or to the temple or the synagogue on the Sabbath day. Praise the Lord. Let's go to the book of Mark. Mark 3 verse 4. I read. Then the Son of God, he said to them, is it lawful on the Sabbath to do good or to do evil, to save life or to kill? Praise the Lord. The Son of God was here in the presence of someone who was sick, someone who had a problem with the hand. And the Jews, the deception, and then what they brought in was human tradition. They infused their own tradition in the laws of God, that even on Sabbath day, you're not even supposed to even help anyone. So the Son of God, who knew what they would do, and their impression or their thoughts, knew that they will not be happy to see him healing someone on the Sabbath day. So he first of all asked, is it good that we should do good on the Sabbath day, or we should do evil? Let's read. But when they kept silence, because they know that you should do good on Sabbath day, any other day, anywhere, anytime you find yourself, we are supposed to do good, because we emanate from the God of goodness. God has no evil in him, and God forbid. But they kept silent, who? The Jews. And when he had looked around at them with anger, being grieved by the hardness of their heart, he said to the man who is sick, stretch out your hand. And he stretched it out, and his hand was restored as whole as the other. Praise the Lord. So the Son of God is telling us as believers, it's Sabbath day, you are going to church, you are going for fellowship with your family, you meet somebody by the roadside who is sick, who cannot move, you have to stop going to church and then attend to the sick person, help the sick person to the hospital, or if you can do anything possible that a sick person can get relief from dying. That is what we are supposed to do. So even if it will cost you from stopping church and then helping the needy on the way to church, you have to do it. So the Son of God himself also pointed to the Good Samaritan. No, a Jew came to pass by on a Sabbath day, going to church. He didn't mind the man who was by the roadside dying. The rich man came to pass by. He didn't mind the person dying. But the Good Samaritan, when he got there, he stopped, picked the man who was about to die on his horse or camel or donkey to the place of health. And the person was cared for, and he paid for that and said, I'm going. I'll come back and see later on. If there's any other further cost, I will pay for it. The Son of God said, this is how a child of God should be like. This is the man who have done what pleases God on the Sabbath day. So on the Sabbath day, we are supposed to do good. It doesn't mean that Christ came to destroy the Sabbath, but rather to correct the false impression the Jews who were there at that time were teaching in addition to what God has commanded. That is why so many people nowadays, every church, they have their own rules and regulations aside the commandments of God over there working side by side. So that is human tradition. So whatever you institute is not what God has instituted. Therefore, you don't allow your own rules and regulations to override the laws of God or the commandments of God. That is what Christ was teaching them. Praise the Lord.